What is going on, everyone? This is Drew Code Sports Talk, and I am your host, Andrew Wright. And over in his living room, where his family is driving him nuts right now, is my co-host, Cody Johnson. Cody.
Hey, everybody. What is going on? Welcome to Drew Code. Thank you guys for joining us. If you are joining us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, we appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. We got a full episode for you guys, obviously talking Raiders, talking NFL trading deadline. That's going to be a fun one. And then I think we're going to squeeze in some baseball, some World Series discussion. I'm not sure, but it's up to the man upstairs, of course. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways, guys, before we get started, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Drew Code Sports Talk. And also, too, don't forget to subscribe and download the podcast. So with that being said, guys, let's get started.
Take off, I'ma break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts. Never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life. Better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts.
What is going on? Yes, it is Drew Code Sports Talk, and unfortunately, it's just us two this week.
Yeah.
I just want to have a big shout out for from the Backseat Podcast again for coming on to our show last week. It was a ton of fun. My wife and I are still talking about the fight that they had. I mean, it wasn't a fight; it was more of a disagreement, but it was quite hilarious. And I appreciate for them. I know it was a little bit later for them, but I appreciate them taking the time out and coming onto our show and giving us some much needed content. So I appreciate you guys, Ethan and Clark. Big shout out to you guys. So thank you very much. Anyway, man, there is a lot going on in sports. I mean, this is the time of the year where it is fantastic for sports fans. I mean, you have the NFL, you have the NBA starting, World Series or playoff baseball is in full force. So really, really great time of the year. Love it. Hockey started, which, you know, I was going over, my wife was, we were actually doing a project, or not really a project, a paper for one of my classes, and we had to write. She was like, "Oh, you should write about something that you love. You should write about the Raiders." And I was like, "Nah, we suck."
Yeah.
And she's like, "All right, we'll write about the Lakers." "No, they suck." "No, we should write about the Giants. They suck too." And she was all, "Well, what about the Sharks?" It was all, "They're even worse." Dang it. All my teams suck right now. So, but you know what? I'm still happy to talk about anything and everything sports. So it's good to be here. Cody, before we get into everything, man, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well, man. As you know, it's gotten a lot colder here, which is really nice, and we've desperately needed it. You and I got to hang out a little bit today. We had a little bit of an in-and-out lunch, which was nice, and it was been long overdue, so that was cool. And man, I'm just super excited to get to talking about sports. And you and I have been polling and texting as normal regarding this week, and now it's finally here. It seems like it comes quicker each time. So,
well, Cody, let's start with this. This isn't what we were actually going to start with, but it is kind of not just significant, it's huge. It was a combined no-hitter for the Houston Astros tonight. They won 5-0 over the Phillies, so that ties the series at 2 apiece. So huge win for the Astros, where it looked like all the momentum was on the Phillies, especially after Game 3. So crazy stuff. This has been a really good series. This is one of those series where the Phillies have come in. They were coming into this World Series probably the hottest team in baseball. I don't think there's any question that they were. But also the Astros came in as arguably one of the most dominant teams. And when I say dominant teams, I mean just all around. You don't see a lot of holes. So, Cody, I mean, give me what you feel like this World Series, like what you've been seeing this World Series. I mean, I don't know if you watched any of this game today, but just kind of give me your feelings on overall this World Series so far.
Well, my initial reaction is, I believe the weather delaying is playing a part in the Phillies' momentum. I mean, they were hot, it seemed like, coming into it, where they, in a way, they they fell behind, the Phillies did, and then they outlasted the Astros and beat them essentially at their own game by just, being active and just with their bats. And ironically enough, the Houston Astros pitching was struggling against those hot hitters. And now I think because of the rain delays and the weather, it's really cooled off the momentum on that part. And the Astros are just known to be a grittier team and grind it out. They're kind of built for that. And today it just showed that the Astros are a very dangerous team in the bullpen. Like, their bullpen is probably the most underrated in the majors, and it showed that they combined obviously had the first no-hitter in World Series history. So the Phillies had no answer for that. But I think another daunting thing too is the Phillies starting pitching kind of let them down big time today, because they gave up a lot of runs. I would say, I think it was like fourth or fifth inning, and the Astros just pulled away immediately, and it just didn't look very good for the rest of the game. And again, the Astros pitching kind of came alive. Now we'll see what the rest of the series tails, because I said that Astros would win, but I think that we haven't seen the last of the Phillies. I think that they are going to find some life, and they're probably going to push it to a 6 to 7 games. And I thought stupidly the Astros would only take them 5 to win, but clearly that's not the case. But I think the Astros are going to outlast the Phillies. But I think right now it's due to the weather. We have this momentum change that's kind of going back to Houston, and we'll see how the rest of the series plays out.
Yeah, I picked the Astros in 6, and so far I can still have that, but unfortunately I need Houston to win out for me to be correct, and I really don't want them to. I'd rather the Phillies win for sure. There's one more game in Philadelphia, so I do want to say I do feel like the momentum could just as easily move back to Philadelphia and the Phillies in tomorrow's game. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting series until the very end. These are very evenly matched teams. A couple things that I'm taking from this: Bryce Harper is an absolute superstar. Not something that I'm not familiar with, but it is something that I don't think he's been talked about enough. What he's done in this postseason has been he's hitting 368 this postseason. That's all of the playoffs, not just the World Series, not just, the first, few series or whatever. That's all of the series combined. You're getting the best of each team's pitching night in, night out. You have all the pressure. I mean, this is why Philadelphia signed him to a huge contract for these games, for him to have these type of games where he's hitting a home run to send Philadelphia to the World Series. It's incredible, and he's absolutely stepped up to the plate and done exactly what they wanted him to do, and I would actually say exceeding that. Another thing, though, and I think this is why I still believe that the Astros are going to win this. Listen, the best hitters for the Phillies are Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos. I like Alec Baum. I would put him there. There's out of all those guys that I just named, one guy is hitting over 300, and that's the guy I was just talking about, Bryce Harper. The other guys, you see Jeremy Pena, a rookie. He's hitting 300 this postseason. Alex Bregman is hitting 283, and he didn't have a great year this year. Yordan Alvarez, this guy actually was hitting 300 during the season. Right now he's only hitting 205, but he is a dangerous hitter every time he comes to the plate. Yuli Gurriel, this guy is hitting over 300. Kyle Tucker, the guy hit 2 bombs in game 1 off the same picture. I mean, it's crazy. You never know where it's coming from Houston, and this is why this team is so talented and so good. It drives me nuts because I still think, we all saw the video, were they cheating or not? It looks suspicious, at least. I think it's safe to say it looks suspicious. I'm not going to, be out here, be forthright and saying, oh, they for sure were cheating. But it does kind of seem like it. But, it also could be someone just kind of, it's a reaction. It's one of those things. There was one guy, Oh man, this is going to age me a little bit, but Scott Estes, he was a former Giant relief pitcher. Every time he drove me nuts because every time he'd come up to the plate, he's doing this with his hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, God, stop. just stop touching the hat for 1 second. So every guy has their like little routine that they have to do. So it could have easily been that, but it did
Mm-hmm.
look a little suspicious. But let's be honest, even if that did happen, the Phillies are still making this a series. Obviously, tonight is kind of a little different, which that's what I'm worried about is could this game really take the wind out of the Phillies? I think they're too good for that to happen, but I do think that there's a possibility that Houston wins out and wins it in 6. But I also can see this series going to 7. So we'll see what happens, but I really just think this Houston team, just talking about strictly the lineup, not even talking about the pitchers, you just never know where it's coming from. I mean, I didn't even mention Jose Altuve, for God's sakes. He hasn't been great in this series, or this playoff, but he's still a guy that you always have to worry about, unfortunately. So, very good series, and you know, I haven't been as plugged in as I'd want to, but I catch glimpses here and there of the game, and listen, it just every time I see Houston, I'm just like holding my breath that the Phillies can get out of it. So, you know, that's kind of what the feel I've gotten all World Series. So, all right, Cody. Well, we weren't sure we were going to do baseball, and we did baseball first because, well, I just felt like, you know, no hitter. I think that needs to be talked about a little bit, don't you think?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you are.
Okay,
Well,
sorry.
I can hear you. I just can't see you move.
My connection for some reason is really spotty right now. It's probably because of the weather. So just bear with me. But yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. So all right, Cody. So let's talk about. We just had the NFL trade deadline come and pass. There was a lot of trades. I think there was 12 trades in total, and it was the most trades on a trade deadline in NFL history. There were some big names. We have 5 of the names. I guess in the notes, right? That's what you said. Okay.
Yep.
So we wrote down 5 trades. So we're gonna go through them, and Cody, we're just gonna kind of basically see who kind of not necessarily won the trade, but whether this is going to be whether this was a good trade for the team that got the person, or you know, if it wasn't. So let's start with Bradley Chubb, who was traded to the Miami Dolphins. What's your first initial thought on that?
My first thought is Dolphins are all in this year. They have a okay defense. It's not the greatest. It's also not the worst. It's subpar at best. I think it could hold its own. Their secondary is a little underrated. I think depending on whoever their matchup is, they can hold their own. But Bradley Chubb is kind of like that linebacker leader they were really looking for. And especially with a young team that's explosive offensively, they definitely need somebody in the linebacking core that can pressure the quarterback and also to kind of help out in defensive sets and getting the defense prepared. And I think this is a smart move for the Dolphins. And I think it's also a smart one for the Broncos to get some assets to build, because obviously the Broncos probably aren't going to do much the rest of this year with how Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett have been working together. And so you got to just try to get what you can to rebuild for maybe the new season. And I know we're still pretty early in that conversation, but I think this says that Dolphins are all in this year, and they really address the need that they had on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, this is a great trade. I mean, this is exactly who you want. You've built a team in the Miami Dolphins where your plan is you're always going to be ahead. So what's the next thing that you need to do when you are ahead? Well, you need to put pressure on the opposing quarterback. Well, Bradley Chubb does that.
Yeah.
I will be honest. I don't think he deserves a first-round pick, to be perfectly honest. I think he's good. I don't think he's great or in that elite status, but I do think he is a very good pass rusher. He is someone that, I mean, let's be honest, if the Raiders went after him and grabbed him, I would have been super happy, but we're not in a position to do that. But nevertheless, Bradley Chubb is a good quarterback. Good Lord. He's a good guy to go after the quarterback. And he is the guy that you want on your team. And I think this definitely improves. Not only does it improve the Dolphins defense, their pass rush, it improves their pass coverage. Because when you got a guy who you have to worry about at the line of scrimmage, you're going to have to come with either these quick passes. And if you're behind by 2 scores, you can't go with these quick passes. So you're going to have to go with these deep, and which Xavier Howard is going to have a field day with. So I really like this move by the Dolphins. It just says that they're all in. But my only worry is Tua has to stay healthy now. Because although I like Teddy Bridgewater, I don't think he's better than Tua, and I don't want to say he's far away from Tua, but I also don't think he's at the level that Tua's at right now. And it really relies on Tua at this point.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to protect.
Yeah, not only that, but I mean, Tua is very fortunate to have as many weapons as he has with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, to where he doesn't have to sit back in the pocket for 5 to 6 seconds to find somebody open. He can just dump it off and they'll get a bunch of yards following the catch and all that. So, but yeah, you're right. Tua has to stay healthy, because I think without Tua, this thing doesn't really run properly. And I don't know. Tua is kind of a little bit injury prone. Yes, he had the scary concussion. And, when he was drafted out of college, he was coming off of a major hip surgery. He's had various injuries in his short time. And, I know that he had a really good game against, I forgot what the team that they played.
This past week.
This past weekend, he himself had a very good day statistically. And I'm blanking on the team that he played against, but he had a great game, but also too, like, his 2 main weapons, Waddle and Hill, got all the receptions essentially. And, in some analysts, depending on what sports channel you're watching, was saying that he's better than Justin Herbert. I wouldn't go that far, but I definitely think that this offense is better tailored for his skill set to carry the team. And if he gets injured, I think it all kind of goes to crap. So
they played the Lions.
Okay. That would make sense. All right. He had a good stat day.
All right. So let's talk about the next trade. This was a surprising one. Chase Claypool, wide receiver, was traded to the Chicago Bears. This was kind of a surprising move, but it's an understandable move. But I'll let you start us off. Chase Claypool to the Bears. What do you think?
So my first initial thought when I saw the report was kind of useless for both sides, because it's not that the Bears don't need another weapon, but I don't think they really addressed what they needed to. And I can maybe see that this is an investment piece for Fields in the future, because he doesn't need another receiver. He needs offensive linemen. That's his main need. And, Chase Claypool does not block, from my understanding. He's a pass catcher, so that doesn't work. But at the same time, too, I think the Steelers got, a pretty high draft pick out of it. And so, yeah, they gained some assets out of it. And they were trying to get Claypool out to begin with, since last season. So my initial thought is this really doesn't do much for the Bears. It's not like they're going to make a playoff run. Maybe he's another nice weapon for Fields if Claypool can stay healthy. But I don't think Chase Claypool moves the needle that much. If this was Green Bay, I'd be a little bit more excited for Green Bay. Like, they finally got another pass catcher that's got some legit, has to be, followed on the field. But to go to the Bears, who, I think it's fine. I'm kind of like middle feeling of it. So
I actually like this move, and they're doing this move for next year, because he's not a free agent after this year. He's a free agent after next year. So this is actually a big jump for next year. And I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to set up all their draft picks, and I think they don't want to waste an early draft pick on a receiver, because from what I can remember anyway, this receiving draft class this year coming up is not very deep. It's got some good top end talent, but like in the middle rounds where they're probably going to want to get a receiver, they're probably not in love with all of them. So that's why I think they really went after Chase Claypool. He's a big receiver. He's a guy that you can throw it into the red zone and he's going to go up and get it. He's got some speed, so that'll help as well. So I really do think that this was a I think this was a chess move, not a checkers move for the Bears in this case. And I like it. I don't hate it. And they did give up a kind of a high draft pick, but they just got a ton for Roquan Smith, who we're going to talk about in a bit, and Robert Quinn. So I think this was a good move. This is one of those that, hey, we're okay with giving up a draft pick if we can get a receiver who could really work out, and if it doesn't, we're not too worried about it. So I think it was just a smart move by the Bears to go after it, and I kind of feel like it was a pity, or not a pity, a pick to kind of piss off Green Bay a little bit, because they were like, hey, look, we can get whoever we want. You guys have trouble getting a receiver, because there was a report that Chase Claypool was kind of being talked about going to Green Bay, and Chicago swooped in and was like, nah, you're not going to get him.
Yeah.
So I kind of love it from Chicago. Good for you, Bears. And right now, I actually feel better about the Bears than I do the Packers. Not just because with this trade. I just feel like overall, they're finally starting to click. It looks like the head coach knows a little bit more of what he's doing than Matt LaFleur right now, which sounds crazy, but I don't think it is, to be honest. So
yeah,
I like the Bears, at least in the next 2 years. I think I like the Bears better than I do the Packers. So, all right, Cody. So there was another trade. This one was another shocking one. TJ Hockenson, the tight end, traded to the Minnesota Vikings. This was okay. This blew my mind because this is in division.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just that the Lions let go of their tight end. Okay, whatever. I understand you guys feel like you're done trying to get him to a contender. You guys don't want to sign him to a big contract. Makes sense. What doesn't make sense is you traded him in division.
Right.
If he likes Minnesota, which is not too far from Detroit, he could actually like it and stay and sign an extension there, where then you are going to see him for years to come. So I don't really understand it all from the Detroit Lions perspective. But Cody, what were your thoughts on TJ Hockenson going to the Vikings?
I was actually confused why the Lions let him go. I thought he was a good young tight end that, I mean, you can continue to build around. I thought he had a pretty good rapport with Jared Goff, and even if Jared Goff doesn't stay, I think he'd be a really great safety blanket for another quarterback. So I was actually kind of confused on why the Lions thought that this was a good idea. I'm not even aware of maybe their second tight end that maybe they like more. I know that the Vikings has helped them out a lot because, I know they have Irv Smith, but this now kind of upgrades that position, and they already have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, who's still involved in the offense now with a new head coach. I was very shocked as you are, the fact that it's in division. That blows my mind, I think, more than the fact that he was traded in general. But I think the Vikings are making a really strong push to be a threat in the NFC, especially in their own division, which, you and I, when we did our predictions, we were both kind of sided with Green Bay. But I think now we missed the Vikings on this one. Like, they actually look like the best team in that division, and they have Kirk Cousins leading the way, which is kind of scary. But I mean, this is just another security blanket for him that he usually likes to go to. And now he's a lot more reliable and more athletic. And this is a huge upgrade for the Vikings, and kind of makes you wonder, what are the Lions thinking? And, is this the start to the end of the Dan Campbell regime, just because this is kind of a questionable move. And I don't know what it does for them in the future, because I thought he worked really well with their team. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Don't make a lick of sense. But I kind of do feel like, at least with speaking about just the Vikings side of it, he's probably going to get the Kyle Rudolph treatment that Kyle Rudolph had when he was in Minnesota. Rudolph was frustrating, especially for a guy who, plays fantasy football, because he was a guy that would he would catch about 7-8 touchdowns a year. And you just never knew when it was going to come, because if he didn't score a touchdown, he had maybe 3 catches in that game for 20 yards, and you're like, dude, this guy only gets me 5 points every single time. And then all of a sudden you keep him out of your lineup, and all of a sudden he catches 2 touchdowns in a game. And he had 5 catches for 2 touchdowns, and went for 30 yards. You're like, dude, what the heck, man? All of a sudden they want to throw to you a little bit more. So I think that may be what happens, because he is a big body. Kyle Rudolph was just a big red zone threat. That's what he was. And I think that's why the Vikings made this move, was to have that kind of guy, because Justin Jefferson, you obviously always have to worry about him. Dalvin Cook, of course, you have to worry about him. KJ Osborne, I really like the receiver for Minnesota as well. But I think TJ Hockenson, I think he might be featured a little bit more than the Kyle Rudolph type thing, but I think they're really mainly getting him for those red zone threats to keep you honest, at least. And I think that's the whole point of it. And he's a good blocking tight end, to be honest. I mean, he's from Iowa, for God's sakes. I mean, all these Iowa tight ends know how to block, apparently. So this is a good move for Minnesota. I'm not slamming them at all. But I don't understand the line, and I feel like if the Lions really just wanted to piss the whole division off and still trade within division, they should have traded them to the Bears, because that would have been fantastic. They got Chase Claypool and TJ Hockenson, and Green Bay would be like, what the heck? Aaron Rodgers would lose his mind. And Kirk Cousins would be like, we're okay. It's not that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden Chicago's putting up 30 every time. But I would have loved to have seen that. But I'm with you, man. It really, to me, when I heard that, I was like, I don't understand that one in division, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right. So, speaking of those Bears, Cody, yes, they traded Robert Quinn, but they also traded their top linebacker, Roquan Smith, traded to the Baltimore Ravens. This was a huge one. What was your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, I know that his relationship with the Bears had soured, so this was coming. I don't know why I feel like the Ravens were a dark horse in the team getting him. I mean, there was, in my opinion, a lot more teams that should have maybe given away the assets required to obtain him. And for example, I'm going to say the Raiders should have been one of those teams. And I don't know, maybe something happened where a deal was in place and fell through. I'm going to be a conspiratory person and say that, but I mean, good for the Ravens. I mean, this fortifies their defense. They don't have a really great secondary, so I can see that they're trying to make sure that they can bring pressure when needed to where they get to the quarterback before the quarterback has enough time to find an open receiver, because the Ravens cornerbacks aren't really doing much. And especially this defense gets hurt with injuries very often, very similar to the 49ers, which is kind of ironic. But this is great for them. Now, my only concern is they have something similar to this in a Patrick Queen. So I don't know how that's going to work, whether that's a rotation thing, whether, one player is going to move to a different side of linebacking than the other. But I'm sure the Ravens will figure this out. They're a defensive juggernaut year in and year out, and they just fortified that. But, this is great for them. And, it's unfortunate that, there's this clip that goes around of Smith getting the news that Robert Quinn had been traded, and he basically pours his heart out about what that meant to him and stuff like that. So something must happen in Chicago for all this to happen, to bring out that much emotion and care and all that stuff. And so it's just unfortunate to see an end, I guess, to what was happening. But the Ravens are going to have a scary defense, and as long as they can keep Lamar upright, they have a good shot at being a surprising team in the AFC, and that could be a big part of their defense. Why?
Yeah, I'll shout out my friend Brad, who's a Bears fan. He wanted to keep Roquan Smith, and I think a majority of Bears fans wanted to keep him, and for good reason. I mean, this guy is a talented guy. Unfortunately, they're in a point where they're in a rebuild. Not now, I don't want to say rebuild, like they're kind of in the middle of it right now, and they just can't spend, this top dollar on a linebacker where, to be perfectly honest, they've kind of proven that they can develop young linebackers. I mean, they developed Roquan Smith. I mean, Roquan Smith came in highly touted as one of the top linebackers coming out of college. But just because you're considered one of the top linebackers coming out of college doesn't mean you're going to do that in the NFL. And I feel like they made him that and more in Chicago. And so they've proven time and time and time and time again that they can develop their linebackers. So I think they trust the guys that are in that organization to develop a young guy. So I think they're okay with letting him go and not having to spend top dollar. I'm sure they wish they could have him and keep him, but it is a business and they do have to think about the money situation. And unfortunately, that is one of those things you do have to think about. And so I don't understand why the Ravens went after him. I'm with you, man. Like, I felt like the Ravens should have gone after safety, corner, something, maybe another pass rusher or something. It just, I mean, Matt Judon for the Ravens has been okay, but I feel like they could use, a Bradley Chubb probably would have been, I think would have been a better trade for them than Roquan Smith, or even Robert Quinn would have been a better trade. So, but I do, listen, I'm on the belief that you can never really have too many good linebackers. I think that's always going to be a plus, but you do have a stellar guy in Patrick Queen, and now you're getting Roquan Smith, who no, they were not teammates. Never mind. I believe Patrick Queen came from LSU, so my bad on that one. But nonetheless, I think those guys are going to get along just fine. But I don't think it necessarily fills a need. I think it just kind of puts duct tape over a crack in a boat right now. So, which I'm talking about that just strictly about the defense. But the other thing I did see is with the Lamar Jackson contract looming, this is definitely a 1-year deal, or this is a rental of Roquan Smith, because Roquan Smith is going to cost a lot of money, but Lamar Jackson is going to require the bank. And so, and as they should pay Lamar Jackson. So they're going all in, and I can respect that, but I'm not sure it's going to help them, get over whatever they need to get over. I just don't think it'll be there. So good for the Ravens to go after a big name, and I'm sure he'll have a ton of tackles. I'm not saying that, but I don't think it really fixes much.
Yeah.
All right, Cody. So let's talk about the last trade that we have written down. Calvin Ridley, who is suspended for all of this year, was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, ironically, for when he was suspended for betting that the Falcons were going to beat the Jaguars, and ironically, he gets traded to the Jaguars. So, first of all, is he going to be accepted in Jacksonville? And secondly, what do you make of this trade?
So first off, I just want to say, whatever in the world Atlanta Falcons are thinking, I have no idea. So, and I'm not a Calvin Ridley fan or per se. I think he is an exceptional receiver. I think that was proven last year when he was basically carrying that offensive team by himself, essentially with this was no Julio Jones at the time. So he was receiver number one, putting up ridiculous numbers, being a threat. And that was with an aging Matt Ryan. And now I'm not saying Marcus Mariota is an upgrade. I think Marcus Mariota is fine. He is what he is. So even if you ran with Marcus Mariota the rest of this year and maybe you started him next year, having that extra weapon alongside Drake London would have been very, very good for that team. And with Kyle Pitts, Now, granted, Arthur Smith, for some reason, who's the head coach of this team, doesn't know how to use all of his weapons, which is concerning into itself. But I actually just find it concerned. Calvin Ridley is in the prime of his career, and you trade him to the Jags. I think this is a hell of a move for the Jags because Trevor Lawrence basically gets his number one guy. Zay Jones is fine. Marvin Jones Sr. is fine. You know, the collection of receivers that they purchase essentially throughout this offseason are fine. They're serviceable. They're okay. This next season, especially under Doug Peterson's offense, will be very different, and it'll be very good for Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence has an arm that's ready to throw the ball whenever and need a guy to go and get the ball or get open. Calvin Ridley is that guy. So the Jags made a heck of a move, and I think it's the right one to do. Get Calvin Ridley probably at a really good discount just because he's not available all season, this, that, and the other. I don't know what the Falcons are thinking, considering he could have been paired really well next to all the other assets that the Falcons had. And that's not even to mention that they just drafted a quarterback who they're trying to develop. So if you think that he's as good as you believe he is, then having that quarterback have all these weapons would help the growth of the team and of that quarterback. So I just am missing the part where trading him was the best option. And it's not like he was traded for a first round pick. I think he was traded for like a mid-round pick. I don't even remember what the compensation exactly was, but it's not like it was a second round pick for consecutive years or anything like that. I can understand that. It was like some late round pick and maybe some exchanges. So that blows my mind on the side of the Falcons, and great for the Jags. I cannot applaud them enough for getting Trevor Lawrence, his guy, for next season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think starting from the Atlanta side, like I don't understand why you're trading him. I don't think he was a bad locker room guy. I think majority of that team was outraged at the fact that he was like going, like he wasn't going to be there anymore. And because he was suspended because of a gamble that he had for his own team. It wasn't like he was like hoping to, for the Falcons to lose or something. So for me, it was a little questionable. I'm with you on that. Like, I really just don't understand why they would get rid of him, especially like, would he require some sort of, compensation, something that would be significant? I think he would want a fairly big contract, but his contract is going to go down because he was suspended. So I don't think it was going to be a killer or a hindrance to Atlanta. So I really don't understand from that standpoint. But what I do love is exactly what you said. If you're worried, or Jacksonville, I've seen like, oh, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence can play. I consider this year his rookie year. Last year was a complete what is the nice word to say? Just crap show. It was terrible in Jacksonville last year. I mean, I don't know what was going on. So this year, I really do consider his rookie year. So he's still learning. He really is. And he's learning from a guy that I feel like he's getting more and more confidence every time he's getting out there. And then exactly what you said, next year with Calvin Ridley, if you weren't sure that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the quarterback next year, this trade proves that he's going to be there. You're not trading for a top-tier receiver to start over again. You're going to trade because you think this guy is going to work with my quarterback. I think this is a great move for Jacksonville. This is a stacked wide receiving core in Jacksonville. And this now goes to show Jacksonville, what they're doing next year in this upcoming draft, they're going to draft a ton of offensive linemen. They're going to draft a ton of defensive linemen, maybe a couple of secondary guys, maybe a linebacker. They're just going to really make sure that ETN is blocked for, Trevor Lawrence is blocked for, and that these receivers get their time to shine. So good for the Jacksonville Jaguars for getting them. I just really surprised that the Falcons even let him go, to be honest. So
Yeah, completely.
good for them getting him. I was trying to see what he was. Oh, for a conditional. He was traded for a conditional 2023 and 2024 draft picks. So we don't really know who those players really are going to be. That is, he deserved more. That's all I'm saying. Atlanta got fleeced in that. So, all right, Cody, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little NBA news. And if we have enough time, we're going to talk about what's going on with the Las Vegas Raiders.
All right, here we go.
All right, we are back. We're back, baby. Anyway, so some other breaking news happened when the NFL trade deadline was happening. Some NBA news. So the Brooklyn Nets started the year 1-5, and they then announced that Steve Nash, the head coach, and the Brooklyn Nets had mutually parted ways from each other. So, Cody, first of all, was this the right move?
Yeah, I mean, this should have happened before the season started, in my opinion. And I don't blame Steve Nash for the condition of this team and how it's unfolded. In my opinion, it is completely on, Sean Marks. It is completely on the players that made it this volatile, in my opinion. And Steve Nash, he did all that he could. I don't think it helped that this was literally his very first coaching job in general, college or professional. And, you can be the smartest NBA player, but if you don't have any sort of experience on coaching, you can get lost very quickly. And not that I don't think he's prepared, but I mean, for a first-time head coach, you're going to get the most polarizing personalities on your team and figure out how to get them to work together. And there was an interview or two where they easily said that they didn't even need a head coach. So, I easily see that this was a train wreck from the get-go. They should have been gone. I think Steve Nash should have stepped down before the start of this season. And the fact that we're to this point now, it blows my mind. I didn't think it can get any worse. I was actually starting to get encouraged. Okay, you get Ben Simmons back. Kyrie Irving and KD are both now recommitted to Brooklyn, so on and so forth. I was thinking, okay, yeah, this can work. And no, in fact, it's even worse. How is that possible? I don't know, because we had an entire offseason, and yet they come back worse. And now, I hate to say it, but there's a strong possibility Kyrie Irving can be a Laker after Thanksgiving, like a legit possibility, because of the drama that's going on with him tweeting about something anti-Semitic, or a film that advertises anti-Semitic, and the behaviors of everything that's going on. This core does not work, and it's just toxic. That's all it is. And I think the former head coach to the Celtics, Udoka, is going to be taking over now, which I think is great. But I think Brooklyn needs to hit the full reset button right now. I think they need to start trading players and get this thing under control, because right now it's really bad in Brooklyn, and they are making the Lakers look like a well-run organization, and they are not. And that's another scary thing on how bad this Brooklyn Nets team is.
So I would first put this whole ordeal, Steve Nash, the percentage wise of who's to blame. I would put this maybe at like a maximum of like 20-25% on Steve Nash. I really don't think he really had much say. I think he was probably the fourth or fifth or even sixth guy that they would go to for any information on whatever, or guys that they would listen to. I mean, there you have the owner, the GM, you have KD. Actually, I would say owner KD, Kyrie, then the owner, or then the GM, then Steve Nash, and possibly Ben Simmons might be over him too. So it was crazy, and I think this is an organizational fail. I don't think this was a Steve Nash fail, because I was looking at his numbers, and I'm going to pull them up here on my tablet just to make sure that I say this right. But Steve Nash, his head coaching career with the Brooklyn Nets, in 161 games that he had coached, 72 in 2021, 82 in 2022, and then obviously the 7 games that he coached with the Nets here this year, he was 94 and 67 overall. That is a 58 win percentage. That's actually better than what I thought. Now, obviously, it was towards the end of last year where it started kind of looking a little sus. And then obviously the offseason, which I don't think you can put on Steve Nash at all. They were wanting Steve Nash there. It was KD and Kyrie who were saying, we want Steve Nash as our head coach. And then they got him, and they were like, oh, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. He's not getting paid enough, so we're just going to do our own thing. And it was like, this doesn't make any sense. He was 7-9 in the playoffs. So it's not like he was complete trash in the playoffs. He was actually still winning games. Of course, and they still almost made it to a conference championship with him as head coach. So
yeah,
I don't put a lot of it on Steve Nash, to be frank, man. I think Steve Nash just got a really raw deal on this. Now, do I think he was fantastic? I'm not going to go that far and say I think he was going to be a great head coach. I think he can be, but I do think he needs to probably either, I think at this point, maybe a G League team, maybe a low-end NBA team, like if Mike Brown doesn't work for Sacramento, maybe that would be a good destination just to see what he can do, see how that team looks, even though right now Mike Brown looks like he's doing okay with Sacramento. So maybe like Indiana or something. I don't know. But I just feel like he needs to go, or college even. I think that would be a good fit for him to try and work some kinks out and then try and come to the NBA, because I think him getting thrown into this was just ridiculous. He shouldn't have gotten the job in the first place, to be perfectly honest. He didn't have a resume for it other than he played in the league. And I'm not saying that isn't worth something, but we should have seen, I mean, a lot of people were even saying it, and I think a lot of us did see that, this wasn't going to work. When the players are running the team, it's not going to work. You don't look at Miami Heat and go, oh, Jimmy Butler is definitely the guy who runs that team. No, it's Eric Spoelstra. And above him is Pat Riley. I mean, those guys are running the ship. You're not going to question that. In Milwaukee, yes, Giannis is this big figure, but Giannis is listening to his head coach all the time. You don't look at him and go, oh, he's definitely making all these moves. I think LeBron is kind of doing this in the Lakers, where he's kind of running the team, and you're seeing it's not going great right now. And so this is, the good organizations are running their organizations and having the players play. Now, I'm not saying that the players shouldn't have a say in certain things, but I also am not saying that they should have a say in everything, because obviously what they're thinking or what they see is going to be different, and is going to be more of a personal connection, versus where GM is going to be kind of like, okay, we need to do this because this is what we need. I know, KD wants this player, but this doesn't fit. You know what I mean? So it needs to be a whole organizational change, and that's not going to happen. So even if Ime Udoka becomes the head coach for the Nets, I don't think it's going to change much, because either KD and Kyrie need to go, or at least one of them need to go, and go from there.
Yeah, no, I don't know have any much more to add, but that's again why the question is how much change could happen with the new head coach. That's why, in my opinion, like if we're this far up the river and we're basically just without one the head coach that the players asked for, then demanded to leave, then kissed and made up, and then now he's gone. I don't know what a new head coach in the start of the season's going to do because this just seems like a very toxic start to the season. It may be smart for them just to, let's just start trading some things away while the price is still good. Because if this continues to unfold the way it is, not a whole lot of teams are going to give up a ton of assets for some toxic players. Maybe right now is the best time for the Nets to sell high on a lot of these guys to get some assets back, some players to even think about rebuilding because right now, in what universe are they going to be ready or prepared to get it in the playoffs, let alone the play in? Because right now they're their own worst enemy, and especially Ben Simmons isn't even shooting the ball right now. KD's not going to tolerate this whole drama that Kyrie keeps doing. Kyrie only had 4 points in his last game, and he's causing a bigger distraction than he is helping the team. So there's just so much layering to this that it's like, the only option is to just let's let all parties go and get what we can while it's still high. Because right now, relatively, they're all playing pretty good. But right now, like you let this keep unfolding and no team's going to want to touch any of them or they're not going to give you what you originally asked for. So.
All right. I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. You're going to get mad at me, Cody, but I'm saying it. Now would be the time to sell to the Lakers. I'm just saying. Listen, Kyrie, if you're just trading Kyrie, you're not getting AD for Kyrie. You're not going to do that. I think during the offseason, I think there was a chance. I think you could have got him. So if you're Brooklyn, you failed there. You could have got rid of Kyrie a lot earlier, and you didn't. I think it depends on what they want to do. It depends on what Brooklyn really wants to do. I'm being truthful here. It depends on what they want to do because if they want to just completely rebuild, I think you do need to get rid of KD. I think you do need to get rid of Kyrie. You could probably make the case to keep Ben Simmons, but you're going to have to either draft or trade for a guy who will shoot the ball. You need to trade for like a Trae Young to kind of make up for Ben Simmons not shooting.
Right.
I really think that there is a possibility. I know you might call me crazy, but I do think there is a possibility that KD and Kyrie could both be traded to the Lakers. And I think you can make a case for the 2 first-round picks that they're holding so dear to their heart for some weird reason, because apparently LeBron is going to be there in the next 7 years. I think you could trade away those 2 first-round picks, trade away AD and Russell Westbrook, and you get Kyrie and KD in return, maybe another player. Maybe I don't know if you could get a Seth Curry. You'd probably have to get a lower end player than that. But I think you could do it or get a draft pick in return for it. And the reason I say that is AD is a guy who he was successful when he was alone in New Orleans, when he was the guy. I think Russell Westbrook actually would play well with Anthony Davis, just them two. Ben Simmons is a guy who offensively, if he's going to have the ball in his hand, he's just going to create for others. He's not going to create for himself, but he's a good defender. So you could kind of make it work. So for me, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. And you're going to get 2 future first-round picks where you can actually say, hey, the coach that we hire, he is going to be our future and he's going to have those picks. And also you're going to have a guy who, if he is healthy, can be a MVP candidate. And you have a guy who, I mean, let's be honest, he kind of helped Washington Wizards get in the playoffs when Russell Westbrook was there. So and you finally have gotten a guy in Russell Westbrook who's finally starting to say, hey, maybe I do need to come off the bench. I feel like I'm working better, at least with the Lakers on that team. So now you've had a guy who's getting older and he's starting to realize, hey, this is the role I have to play. You're getting a better Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, a guy who knows his limitations now, who knows what he needs to do for a team. I think this is the perfect time for the Lakers. Now, I don't know. The Lakers might have to sweeten that deal. I'm sure they will. I don't know how they would do that, but I do think it is a real possibility. I think we were calling me crazy in the offseason because it didn't look like you could get both for AD and Russell Westbrook. But I think now, with what has been going on with the Brooklyn, I think you could say right now, Brooklyn, they're going to have to sell low because I don't think there's anything Kyrie can do right now to where you would think, oh, he's completely bought in. I just think he's always going to have these things. And I think if you're Brooklyn and you're going to hire a new head coach, you need to get rid of that toxicity. And that toxicity is Kyrie for sure.
So quickly, I do want to address what you said about potential trade regarding AD and Westbrook for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. In my opinion, just based on the condition of the franchise for the Lakers, because that's what I'm basically always thinking about, just because LeBron's aging, all this is going to happen. So it's like, what's best for the franchise? Yes, in the future, but also moving forward. My opinion is I really don't want both KD or Kyrie. I would want one or the other. I don't think having them both on the same team works. That's kind of being proven right now with how volatile it is. And I don't think having like Darvin Ham is going to change that. Just like you don't think that having the new head coach for Brooklyn is going to change that. I would for sure would choose KD over Kyrie to come to the Lakers first. I would give up Anthony. I'd give up Anthony Davis and a first round pick, both first round picks if we got Kevin Durant, because that means we get his contract and he's still on the books for like 3+ years. And that's really good. Kyrie, I would be okay getting because that would be simple. Just get Westbrook over to Brooklyn. He's paired back up with KD. Kyrie comes back here to the LA Lakers. And then now there's Anthony Davis, Kyrie, and LeBron. That's a little bit more attractive, but I don't want both of them I don't want both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on the same team. I think that's too much. I don't think it works. They play fine together, but there's too much distraction with both of them to where I wouldn't want that on the team. So
the reason I say both, because I don't think you're going to be able to get rid of if you were going to get rid of KD, I think they're going to get rid of Kyrie. Now, I agree with you in the sense of if they just get rid of Kyrie, that may all what they do. They may want to keep KD, which makes sense. I'm not saying that doesn't. But what I also do feel like, and I do think is a real possibility, is if you get both, if you're the Lakers and you actually get both, what you're doing is you're replacing a guy who was timid in shooting, the jumper, or you're a guy who's been timid of going at the hoop. Now you're getting a guy who's one of the best ball handlers in the game and gets to the hoop by himself. And a guy who can also shoot a lot better threes than AD. And then you're also getting a guy who is a superstar in KD, who can play defense, who is lengthy, who stretches the court, obviously, but also is a guy who can shoot. And that's what the Lakers need. You're getting two big-time shooters, and then you add that with LeBron, but LeBron is a guy who's wanting to pass the ball. He wants to create. He doesn't want to have to score 35 a night. Can he? Yes, he can. He's been proving that. But he has been getting injured lately. LeBron is not a dumb player. He knows what his strengths are. He knows what's going on with his body, and he knows that he cannot keep up 35 points a game at his age right now. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to have to do it. And he needs guys who can help him out with shooting, and he will gladly refer to KD. I have no doubt about that. And then Kyrie is a guy that he can do whatever, and that would be a perfect situation for Kyrie where he doesn't have to play every single game. He can sit out. And on the days that he doesn't want to, LeBron can sit out or KD can sit out. Load management, and it's perfect. It's a perfect situation. I really do think that it would be a smart move for the Lakers. If we get Kyrie, it already improves us by even if we don't even get rid of Westbrook, even if we have to keep Westbrook, I still think it improves us because we improve our shooting, and that's what we really need right now. So that's why I was saying both of them. But
I get it. Yeah.
All right, Cody, do we have time for Raiders talk?
I think so.
We always have time for Raiders talk.
We always have time for Raiders
talk. All right. I'm going to say this, or I'm going to try and say this without crying. The Raiders lost 24-0 to the New Orleans Saints, who we should have never lost 24-0 to.
Correct.
Is it time to panic for the Las Vegas Raiders?
I think the time to panic was when we fell to 0-4, if I'm being honest, or what is it, 0-3 or whatever that record was, just because, I feel like we played the Broncos, won that game. We played well, so it gave us our confidence. Obviously, we, had another pretty decent game against the Houston Texans. I will argue, though, that our defense was horrid in that game. We just so happened to outscore them, which I know is the point of the game, but it was not the greatest showing. Yeah. And, I think I wouldn't be panicking so much if the way that we lost wasn't so apparent. No defense. Didn't make the flight. Didn't make it to New Orleans for some reason. Don't know. Same thing with the offense. And I don't know what's going on with Derek Carr. I know that there was a report that came out that he's dealing with a back issue, which affected his mechanics and this, that, and the other. Okay, probably true. But I know that he's played through pain before. And I know that he's had way better outings than that while pain or injured or whatnot. So I just feel like that was a bad game plan. I felt like that was an indictment on Josh McDaniels not preparing the guys. I felt like, you and I talked about this, the fact that there's so much regression from the players of last year that they're not even improved, they're worse. And, that only comes with coaching. And I also blame that because the majority of these players are veterans. That's a veteran problem. Yes, they're holding themselves accountable, but clearly they weren't. Either they were a little higher on themselves than what they should have been, or they just went into New Orleans thinking that the Saints were going to roll over because they were missing their number one corner. They were missing their two best receivers. They were only playing against Andy Dalton. And there's a lot more to say about it, but I think what's frustrating is I hear a lot of excuses on why we can't produce, but I see no changes to get the result that we want. I just see, we're working on it. I get it. Then pick a lane then. Are we rebuilding or are we winning now? Because right now I'm getting win now vibes. That's what I've heard all camp. That's what I heard all throughout the preseason and all that. Like, we're ready to win now. Okay, great. I'm buying into it. And now we look like a team that doesn't deserve to be on the football field with another team with how bad we are. We didn't cross the 50 until the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter with a backup quarterback during garbage time. And I'm not saying that the Saints have this bad defense. Is it a very good defense? Yes. I would argue, though, I felt like our offense was good enough to penetrate it. We went against the Broncos defense that's rated higher than the Saints. Yeah. And we did fine. We beat them. I don't know what the difference was with the Saints. So, I mean, I was very heated in that part of it just because it's not the fact that we lost that bothers me. It's how we lost, how badly we lost. We didn't even deserve to touch a football. And it's making me think now, and I know we'll talk about this. It's the next question that's coming up. But I just had a lot of feelings and frustration about, this is the same thing I keep seeing. And I feel like the fool that bought into it because, we had all this promise that's coming. And we look no better than a JV high school team. And that was a poor showing that we had on Sunday. And I'm sure the players feel that. But as a fan who bought into the hype, and I'm included in this, I totally jumped on that hype train. I feel betrayed. That's like my first instinct of how bad we lost and where we're at. So yeah, I'm a little panicked, but I'm also more frustrated. I'm ready for this to not be the same result that everybody else in the league knows what's going to happen, except for us. We're always like the last ones to know, and it's frustrating. That's like how it feels at times.
Yeah, I'm frustrated with the coaching. Now I'm going to say this. I'm not ready to panic yet. because I have to look at it long term. And long term tells me I don't think McDaniels is going to be away. But I am going to put this on McDaniels. Exactly what you said, and kind of what you were talking about, how you and I had been talking about all week about you don't have Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Chandler Jones, Josh Jacobs. You don't have all that talent, and majority of those players, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, secondary. You don't have all those guys, and basically everybody except for a few people like Jacobs, Adams regress.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy how much the Raiders have regressed from last year from a special teams coach. That's what drives me nuts. We bought into the hype because not because of who Josh McDaniels is or where he came from. It's what we thought. Okay, he learned from his mistakes. He's an offensive guy. Where's the NFL leaning towards? Well, it's leaning towards offense. Where are you getting him? Oh, you're giving him the best receiver in the game. You're giving him, in my opinion, and I'll still say this, I believe he is a top 10 quarterback or top 10 caliber quarterback in Derek Carr. You have in my opinion, arguably a top 10 running back. And you have a defense who you have Max Crosby, who's one of the best pass rushers in the game. And then you were adding, at the time, one of the best pass rushers in the game in Chandler Jones. And then you were giving him Nate Hobbs, who thrived last year and got even better this year. Rock Ya-Sin from the Colts. He's actually been really good. And then Trayvon Merrick, who had a great rookie year, he's coming back. So there's a lot of guys. And then Denzel Perriman, who's a guy who led the team in tackles, but not only that, was a big impact player as a linebacker on the defensive side for the Raiders. And it seems like literally almost all of those players have regressed. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. I know I'm a big fan of Derek Carr, and maybe that's clouding my vision, but I really don't think it's all Derek Carr. I really don't. I think he's being pressured a lot, of course. Maybe he has an injury, I don't know, but I find it weird that Hunter Renfrow is like a no-show now. Darren Waller never plays. Chandler Jones, I don't really put that on Derek Carr because, he plays on a different side of the ball. Chandler Jones has been a no-show. I mean, Max Crosby has literally done it himself. Denzel Perriman has been okay. Trayvon Merrick, actually, I feel like he's been okay. Rock Ya-Sin, he's been good, but Nate Hobbs is injured. I mean, it just seems like all these players, for some reason, are regressing. And I put that on coaching. And I think we got blinded with what the Raiders did in the offseason, going after Adams, Rock Ya-Sin, as we mentioned, Chandler Jones. We saw what they did, but we didn't really think about how he was going to work with Josh McDaniels. I think we thought, okay, offensively, he's going to be good because that's what he does. And, last time, when it failed, he had Tim Tebow as his quarterback. So, it's Tebow. But I think now we're seeing maybe, just maybe, it was McDaniels. I'm not going to panic yet. I don't know if we're going to get in the playoffs. I think I would, if I were a betting man, I would bet that they're not going to get in the playoffs at this point. But I do think McDaniels is going to be here at least next year, just because it does sound like Mark Davis is going to, take it slow, which I actually agree with. I think you need to give a coach a little bit longer than just a year. But as a fan, it drives me nuts, of course, because it's getting worse, not better. And that's a little weird to me, especially we've already had our bye week. So there's no bye week to save us now. We have to just kind of go and figure it out as we go week to week. But Cody, This brings us to the next question. What do you believe that they need to do moving forward to get this right?
So, as I hear your rant, which is well deserved regarding the Raiders, I know that you're not putting a lot of the blame on Derek Carr, and I'm not saying that he should take very much blame other than maybe his part in what he plays in the offense, whether that's, if he doesn't deliver the ball to the correct, player or what the case may be. But I'm in the camp, and here's why I get frustrated in what I was talking about. And, you alluded to it. Josh McDaniels is going to probably be here for at least another year, a couple of years, a lot longer than what a lot of Raiders are saying. Like, everyone needs to go is basically what, especially Raiders Twitter is saying. Like, a lot of people want McDaniels to go like today. And I mean, don't get me wrong, as frustrated as I am, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Realistically, there's absolutely no way. And I hate to say it, but the Raiders have actually been in worse predicaments, and that head coach didn't get fired. They still stayed the following season. So, McDaniels is an investment for long term, just like Ziegler is. That's a long term investment. I
Yeah.
just don't like that they've packaged it where, they were playing on our heartstrings to say, oh, we're going to be a very good football team and we're going to compete with the best of them. You're not even competing with the best division in football. Like the NFC South is one of the most measly divisions. And again, I'm not trying to poo poo on the Saints, but they're not that great of a team. And it's a team we should have beaten. We shouldn't have looked
They
that
were
bad.
they were
So,
missing Michael Thomas. They're missing Jarvis Landry. They're missing Marcus Lattimore. I mean, they're missing their top 3 players.
right. And our defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, couldn't stop a cold, they couldn't stop nobody. It was pathetic. But I will say, I think if we're looking towards the future, which again, this is kind of like what now all of a sudden what the Raiders is telling us to do. We're in this for the future and the long haul. My opinion, that means we need to start planning for the future. And I know that we just re-signed Derek Carr, and I've told you this too. This isn't going to be a surprise to you, but I think it's time that the Raiders now invest into a new quarterback. And I think we should go I believe we still have a first round pick this draft. I would go after, depending on how high we are, I would go after a quarterback in the first round. And I think Derek Carr, and I hate to say it, and it's not because I don't love Derek Carr. I like to think I'm a Derek Carr truther. I'm a huge fan of his. Obviously, he's from Fresno State. We root for the Bulldogs like crazy. I just think that I've seen several quarterbacks that have been drafted to be the franchise, and I've seen them win despite their circumstances. And I think, unfortunately, it's not that I want to get rid of Carr. I think I need to know that we have something that's coming down the pike, something that's being, groomed or molded, so that way the next franchise is ready to go for the next 10 years, because who knows how long Derek Carr is going to continue to play like this. And I think for the Raiders' future, it'd be in their best interest, in my opinion, that they start drafting a franchise quarterback that's going to eventually take over. And I think this upcoming year with the draft class that it is probably the best one that we should probably think about doing, because this quarterback talent is very good. And I think it's worthy of a first round pick. And I don't think we need to address the offensive weapons. We have plenty of those weapons. It's coaching them, it's play calling, it's all the other stuff. But I do think in long-term investment, this is the time I think we should start investing in a long-term quarterback.
So I will say this. I want to stay with Derek Carr. I'm okay with staying with Derek Carr because I think he has proven that he can do it, and he's one of the reasons we got Davante Adams. I do also think that it's crazy that a lot of people are saying, well, where do you think Davante Adams would go if Derek Carr was like, oh, I think he would stay. I mean, he wanted to come to the Raiders, yes, because of Derek Carr, but also because he was a Raider fan when he grew up. So I don't think it's far-fetched to say that he wouldn't stay. I think both can be true. I think Carr could stay and Adams could stay. I think Carr could go and Adams could possibly go. I think that is a possibility as well. But overall, what I think is, if the Raiders keep this trajectory, which right now they have the number 6 pick after week 8. They have the number 6 pick. If we're in the top 10, I agree with you. I think you have to look towards the future. I think you have to draft a quarterback. Whether it's like a Trey Lance type where you're going to use it as a project, that's fine with me. Or if you're planning on having him start, I'm okay with that as well. I would much rather keep Derek Carr and use that top pick, for an offensive lineman or whatever. But as you said, this is a really good quarterback draft class coming in. This is one of those things that I think you at least need to entertain if you're the Raiders. And if you're a Raider fan, if you're a Derek Carr fan, I think you have to at least entertain it, because although even if you do believe in Derek Carr, how many more years does he have left? How many more regimes are we going to go through where he's going to have to go through? I mean, honestly, it almost gets to a point where you're kind of like, it might actually be beneficial for Derek Carr to just kind of get out of this toxicity. But again, I don't think he wants to play anywhere else, and that's what I appreciate about Derek Carr, because he's giving it his all, and he wants to stay for the one team, and he wants to do it with Devontae Adams. And I think they can do it. I'm not giving up on this duo. I think there's a lot going on. I think the McDaniels offense it seems hard. It doesn't seem like anyone's getting it, to be honest, other than Josh Jacobs. But other than that, it just kind of seems like a lot of these guys are kind of like, I'm not sure what to do. So if we get a top 10 pick and they draft a quarterback, I'm okay with it. But if we're top 15, I don't think we should go after a quarterback. I mean, 10 to 15. I don't think you should at that point. I think you need to go after offensive linemen. So it just depends on where they end up, in my opinion. 1 through 10, I think you definitely need to entertain it. 11 through 32, I think you need to go after offensive line or defense, which would probably be the more thing I would rather go after. I would have loved the Raiders to go after a Bradley Chubb, Robert Quinn, any one of those guys. Honestly, I think Robert Quinn, but because I think Quinn, you could actually play inside a little bit as well as on the outside, and give Chandler Jones a break. But you're paying Chandler Jones too much money to do that, so I understand why they didn't. But there's a lot that needs to happen for the Raiders, and so I don't think it's necessarily just the quarterback. But I agree with you. I think it's time to start thinking about a mobile quarterback in the future, and see what can happen. And who knows? Like I said, it could be a project. It could be one of those guys that you keep for 3 years to kind of groom and develop, and then when the time is right, start replacing Carr, or when Carr's contract is up, that's when your new quarterback comes in. So I would be okay with that. All right. Well, Cody, that is it for today, man. We talked a lot about all of this stuff, and I thought it was good, man.
Yeah,
same. It was a good conversation. We felt very passionate on everything that we were saying. So good.
It's all genuine feelings, and especially the Raiders part, man. That was probably some therapy right there.
Yeah, I will say this. I am a person that doesn't like to just knee-jerk reaction on these things, which is weird because everything else I'm really not patient about, and my wife will tell you that for sure. But something about sports, what I've seen over the years, that's what I've always been a proponent of, having a coach get at least 3 years. And I know right now, if I said that with Josh Jacobs, Raider fans would be like, 3 years? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of more of it does take time. Usually the first year they're implementing things, you see glimpses of it, but not much. And then the second year, you start seeing the steps where they're starting to progress a little bit. And then the third year is where, okay, we're either going to go in the Super Bowl this year or next year, or it's not getting any better and we need to start thinking about a new coach. Like, that's where I look at it as. I feel like that with quarterbacks too. I feel like quarterbacks need at least 3 years, especially if you're going to draft one like what we were talking about with Trevor Lawrence. Like, his first year was a complete dud because of what was going on. I mean, he wasn't getting any coaching, hardly.
Right.
This year you have Doug Peterson. I see glimpses. And that's what I'm talking about, even with the coaches. Like, the first year, you should see glimpses. There's some outliers that happen, like, like Justin Herbert in his first year. He looked good, and he wasn't even supposed to be starting. It just kind of happened. And he came out, and he was firing. And so then the second year, you want to see the progression. You want to see them take those steps. And then the third year, you want to be like, this guy, all right, he's it. Or you're like, I'm not sure. And that's what I saw with Derek Carr when he came into the league. He started his rookie year. He had glimpses. He had a really rough patch. But then his second year, he progressed. His third year, you were like, all right, I think he can do it. And I know there are some people out there who are saying, I'm not sure. But overall, it was either Derek Carr or Matt Schaub or Matt Flynn.
Right.
Give me a break, guys. Come on now. Like, let's not kid ourselves. We were talking about Schaub or we signed Matt Flynn to this huge contract. Everyone was like, oh, it's for sure we're gonna do those guys. And like, we were hyped about that. And then they started Derek Carr and we're like, what? And we saw him in the preseason. They're like, oh my God, we need to start him. So you got to give these guys some time. It just needs to happen, especially these young quarterbacks. And also coaches, we need to give them time. That's kind of what I'm more on the camp in. So anyway, just what I think.
I appreciate it.
All right, Cody. Well, go follow us on all the social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always want to hear from you. Please like and comment on our YouTube page as well. We always want to interact with you guys, except if you're this .com place that was commenting on our videos while we were live here. That was weird, talking about sports. But anyway, and you guys don't need to know. That's just for me and Cody. But anyway, go check us out on YouTube. Cody posts a lot of those videos. And go listen to our podcast if you're not already listening to it. But subscribe to our podcast. Also, we would appreciate a rate and review on the podcast. And that's going to be all the major podcast site, which is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. We always want to hear, if it's a 1-star, let us know what you didn't like so we can improve on that and bump it up to a 5-star. And if it is a 5-star, let us know what you appreciated about our show so we can continue to do that. So we always appreciate that. Shout out to Fanatics. Go check them out. Everyone should know what Fanatics is. We are a partner with them. If you use the link in our description, you can help support this show, so we would appreciate that. Which, by the way, I need to buy some stuff anyway. SeatGeek as well, another partner that we just got, who we're really excited about. And we actually have a promo code, which you can see on the bottom of your screen, or if you don't see it on the screen, if you're listening to it on the podcast, it will be in the description of the podcast and all of our videos, all of our social media sites. So it'll be really easy to find. But use our promo code, DrewCode, and you can get $20 off your first order. Your very first order of SeatGeek, you can get $20 off by using our promo code. So go do that. Fresno State has a big game coming up against Hawaii, who we just beat with a last-second touchdown, which was so cool. We beat San Diego State, so now we own sole possession, first place in the Mountain West in our division. So if we beat Hawaii, which we usually struggle against Hawaii.
Yeah,
so this is a
every
big
time.
game. So this is a big game. So if you're gonna get seats for that game, go to SeatGeek, use the promo code, get $20 off. It'll be well worth it. So go use that. And a big shout out to FNX Fitness, who's been our partner since like day one, man.
Mm-hmm. The OGs.
FNXFit.com. Yeah. Use our promo code where you can get 15% off. Again, all the same description, all the stuff. You can get it on our social media sites, videos, podcasts, which will be Drew Code 15. That is the promo code to get 15% off your whole purchase. So go check them out. Thank you, guys. I'm going to let Cody finish us off.
Well, guys, we appreciate you guys for listening. Again, all the show notes, essentially the topics, are listed down below, and all the links to our sponsors that we mentioned are linked down below too. And I'm happy to announce it is official. It is in the rough stages of building, though, but drewcodesportstalk.com is back. I am working on creating, or it's already created. I just have to put it all together and make it look pretty like before, but it is back. So it'll have all of our links on there to social media, have all of our partners on there along with their products and discount codes and all that stuff. So it's on one page. You guys don't have to go to Linktree and click on all these other things. It's all on one page. So I'm just building it, making it look nice and pretty, but drewcodesportstalk.com is back. So I just want to announce that. And again, guys, we just want to thank you guys so much for your support and listening to us as Drew is dancing, for those that aren't watching on the live stream, but listening. I caught him. He was dancing. So anyways, guys, we thank you so much for listening to us. Please, again, feel free to give us a rate and review the show, and also like, share, comment on all of our social media posts and on our YouTube channel and live stream. So again, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us. We will catch you guys next week, and we will see y'all later.
Catch you on the flip side.
Suckers.